I have this way, it's the adventurous spirit of me to go somewhere and to think, man, I could live here.
Yeah.
I could do life here. Let's plant a church here. Let's do this. Yeah, because I see the idealistic side of it.
I have a lot of desires that are not God desires. I hope as I continue to journey, he's burning that away.
Well, I've got to accomplish this type of grandeur. I've got to have this amount of money in the bank. I've got to have this size house.
Dallas Willard says, grace is not opposed to effort. It's opposed to earning.
Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Armchair Authentic, a podcast designed to help you fulfill your God assignments by having real conversations about real life with real people. Justin and I are looking forward to jumping into the content today, but as always, we've got to take a moment and say thank you so much to every single one of you who've taken the time to rate and review and even comment about the podcast on all your favorite streaming platforms. It really is a blessing to us and it encourages us. But more than that, it is also a great way that we can serve those people who are yet to go on this journey. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, we want to say welcome home, man. We are so glad that you are part of the family starting today on this journey with us. If you haven't already gone to Facebook or Instagram, we would encourage you, follow us there. Go there. You can find us at Armchair Authentic or even on X at Armchair Off Pod. That's Armchair Off Pod. Now, one thing Justin and I have been talking about is how much it is our desire to not only serve you with our stories, but also to serve you with the questions that you might be asking. In other words, we want to hear from you. We want to know what's on your mind. We want to be able to speak into the questions that you might be having right now as a parent or a single or a young adult, or no matter where you are in life. We want to hear from you because we want to create some content that actually serves you well. That's the whole point of this podcast. So here's what we would love for you to do. Would you take a moment after this episode and email us at info@armchairauthentic.com. That's info@armchairauthentic.com. All right, we're really excited about today's episode. You guys ready? Let's go. We received a text from our buddy who lives, where does he live?
Fort Myers, Florida.
I was going to say it was south of Tampa. It's not Tampa, but it's Fort Myers, Florida.
Right.
Micah, dude, huge shout out to you. For those who don't know that are on this journey with us, Justin and I, along with Micah in our youth, we had a band and it was called 24/7. And we started out singing a cappella music together. That was kind of our like trio. We were a trio, right? Before we started adding instruments. I mean, our voice was the instrument. So talking about like swinging for the fence vocally, singing a cappella is like one of the hardest things to do, staying in pitch. And of course, we had a lot of fun with that. So we've stayed in contact and friendship, but Micah sent us a text. Actually, it was this morning and he was like, dude, went out. I'm paraphrasing, but I could sense it. He was like, bro, like went out and play. I'm like on a beach volleyball league type thing. He joined a league. Yeah, he joined a league. And Mike is an incredible worship leader along with his wife, Jess, and their kids are a phenomenal musical family. And so Micah texted us saying, dude, I was in this beach volleyball thing. And it reminded us of when we would go to the beach together and us three would play beach volleyball. And the moment he sent that, you know, I was already thinking of the Top Gun moments of the old movie of the beach volleyball and even the new movie where they're on the beach playing football.
Oh, yeah.
And I could hear the soundtrack going on in my head. And Micah even said that. I kept reading the text. It's like, and it reminded me of the Top Gun moment. I was like, oh, my gosh, you know.
Same brainwave.
Yeah. And all I was thinking, it was like, how, like, dude, first of all, like, thank you for sharing this, Micah. I love you. But the second thought was, God, my life. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's great. But if it could just be lived at the beach like this would be the idealistic, like, dream for Rhett would be to live that close to the beach and do those things. And anyway, it just got me to thinking of just like the joys of those moments, but also like the moments that I find myself in. Like every vacation I go on, my wife always, when we come back, she's like, "We're not moving there." I'm like, because I have this way. It's the adventurous spirit of me to go somewhere and to think, man, I could live here.
Yeah,
I could do life here. Let's plant a church here. Let's do this. Yeah, because I see the idealistic side of it, like, you know, coming off of work and, you know, going and doing what our buddies do, and like the sun's setting, you're out on the beach and you've got the music playing, and it's just this perfect weather, the breeze, and you're out there with your fellas playing some beach volleyball or even football or soccer or whatever on the beach, man. And so, yeah, they just got me thinking about that today.
I mean, you drew a great picture. I mean, I think we would consider that would be paradise to us.
Yeah.
It's ideal, you know, but at the same time, I've seen people who've made moves like that and they never go to the beach once they move there because it's just so normal. But I would tell you, I think the way that we love it, but I would also say I've seen it in Micah, that brother. We talk on the phone, you know, it seems like every week, and our time that we'll call is he wakes up and he heads out to the beach, and he has a certain walk where he grabs a coffee and he walks the beach. So he's not just ideal. He truly lives.
He's living it.
I mean, so I'm like, if anybody deserves the beach, it's Micah, because he lives it to the full.
Yeah. And I had an opportunity at one point when I was living in Mobile. I was 45 minutes away, and every Monday was our day off. And I was living that. I was out there.
Yeah.
My wife and I were there. We'd drop our son off at school. We had the beach gear. We'd go to the beach, sit on the beach for a couple of hours, come back, eat lunch, and then go pick my son up. And on our day off. And so I miss those moments because I'm such a beach guy. So if you're listening to this and you're Northwest or Midwest, you know, I mean, there's idealism too in the mountains. When we lived there, I was like, hey, let's get all the friends around the campfire, let's go snow skiing. Let's go do
flame.
this. Yeah.
As Amy Grant says.
Yeah. And so, but there's something to be said about that mindset. I don't know if everybody approaches life like that. I know you do and I do. I mean, even when I had the chance to visit San Diego one time, I was like, I could live here. This is great. I could wake up every morning and go, you know, these guys out here surfing the waves, and then go take a shower, get ready for the day, go then eat a nice little seafood or something at lunch. And I don't know, man. It's
it's like, hey, in this Zoom world, I mean, you know, really, you know, me and Summer will have talks. I'm like, you could really live anywhere and do this stuff. And she does a great job, like letting me get it out and just talk about it. I'm like, you could do this and still be as effective. I mean, I still would see this person here and we could just be there. Because I'm envisioning the waves crashing in, or I'm envisioning during the fall, exactly what you said, the picture perfect of you have the round fire, but you got the little small tiny houses that surround it, and we can all come out and meet together. But then we go back and have our own personal time. But man, just any of those nostalgic moments, it's because we've experienced that or we've seen it, and it seems like, wow, now that
it's like the movie. It's like the movie moments that capture these, like you know, just these epic scenes of the families around whatever lake environment. What's the movie with Steve Martin? He's the dad and he's married and they've got a ton of kids.
Cheaper by the dozen.
Where they're out camping and they're like they go to the lake house every year, and then there's this huge event where the families all enter in this event, and one of his buddies that he knew a long time ago, they were always like at odds with each other in their rivalry. And so they're on one side of the lake singing like John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, his name is my name too. And then you could hear across the water the other family up their game around their campfire at their nice house, and they're singing like a cappella or some kind of music choir number, Mozart or something. And then they start going back and forth. I don't know.
Or it's crazy. Or you got What About Bob? Isn't it like Lake Winnipesaukee or something like that? And he's just he's the crazy patient who's got baby, and the guy wrote, the doctor wrote Baby Steps.
Yeah, Baby Steps.
Dr. Leo Marvin. And he's just calling for him. He knew that's where they're going. So it's just funny.
It's so fun, man. And you know, I think the downside we don't think about, though, at least for a white boy like me, is I remember when we were doing the beach volleyball, like I didn't have a parent that was like, you need to put on sunscreen because, you know, if you don't, when you hit your 40s, you might deal with skin cancer, you know? And so like, which I have, by the way, had to deal with. But the Lord's been good to me. Thank God. But all that to say, like, I will never forget, you guys nicknamed me Chief.
We did, because every time Pale White Rhett would make his way to the courts. The as Rhett said earlier, Rhett, and Micah played volleyball. Me and Micah had more of a natural tan.
Yeah,
just
thanks
how we were.
for reminding me of that. I appreciate that.
Micah comes from a Lebanese background. He got that. I don't know how I got into my Scotch-Irish background, but I've always been tan. Rhett was white, pale white. And when he would go out there and we'd play without our shirts on.
Yeah, because I don't get suntan. I get red.
Yeah, Rhett turned straight up red, and his nickname was Chief.
Yeah, because like for 3 or 4 hours straight in the sun, no sunscreen, shirt off, you know. Now we were teenagers. I had a 6-pack. Let's go, right? You know, I'm at the best shape of my life, but I'm just white.
You were you were the tall guy of the group, so you were always up front at the net blocking.
Oh man, it was so fun. I'll never forget the sunburn. So there is a downside to this idealistic life. And so when I'm outside, I'm like, I have to, now I don't care. I'm 40 something. I got all this
cream all over you. You're that guy.
I'm the guy I put on my nose to go to the water park. I don't care. You know what? Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to sleep and I'm not burnt and I'm good. And I don't care anymore. I'm married. I've got a kid. Who am I trying to impress?
That's right. They think you're awesome, don't they?
Exactly.
You're that guy. You know, so when you were talking about the beach scene, something that's interesting, during Top Gun Maverick. So part one, Top Gun, it was the beach scene. They're playing volleyball. Iconic scene. Love that. That's where the double 5 happened, where it's up top, then you take it down.
Yep.
With Maverick and Goose. But then on part 2, there was a beach scene where they're playing football.
Yep.
So I was talking with someone who, counselor, and they were actually talking about how that moment in that movie created tons of triggers for some middle-aged men.
It's so interesting you say that, because when I went and saw the movie, I shared with you, I said, dude, I want to, it's a great movie. Like if you hadn't seen it, go see it. We're talking about Top Gun, the second one, right? And I was like, dude, there's this one scene. I don't want to tell you what it is because I wanted there to be an element of surprise. But there's a song that plays in the background. It's so cool. And like this moment, and you know, I'm a middle-aged man. I'm 45, I guess, at the time, or 46. I don't remember when it came out. Anyway, but here I am sharing this with you, and you hadn't seen the movie. Oh yeah. And then now that I didn't know that was. It makes sense.
It was a thing, and I've heard that by multiple sources. It's a true. There's something about that scene, maybe because of the part one that was made in the late '80s.
Yeah,
those young boys. I'm right in there.
Yep.
Now we're middle-aged men, and with those kind of scenes, it triggers back memories of probably hopes and dreams and desires that you had. And it's just a little bit of that, not a wake-up call. It's that reminder, putting it back in front of you that as a boy, maybe, and as girls too, the things that you wanted to accomplish, you kind of realize, oh, it didn't happen that way. And it brings a sense of grief. And not to jump to the end and say, hey, let's wrap this in a bow. There's a way to deal with that, because there is.
Right.
But that moment's so real, and it's like, what do you do in that moment where you're facing that? Well, some people have gone into a depression because they realize, or they have this false thought, the negative thinking, right? As you think, that's what ends up happening a lot of times in your mind. It becomes a reality, even if it's not. And they're thinking to themselves, I'm a failure. I've not attained what I was supposed to go attain. I've not conquered the dragons that I was going to go conquer. And it brings a sadness.
Well, I would say when I saw it, it was kind of happy joy, but also grief towards depression. And I wouldn't have been able to explain it in that moment, because it was, wow, man, look at the fun, look at the joy. Wow, wouldn't that be amazing? And oh, wait, I had that when I was younger. And it was those moments that you don't really, I know this is kind of a common theme with us, but enjoying the moments and not realizing that the moments you're in are actually some of the best moments you'll have in your life that'll carry you to the next. And you can't live on that mountaintop forever. But I think just the beauty of that scene for me was the camaraderie with the guys. They were all against each other and at odds with each other, but then they came together, and the relationships that were beginning to form really reminded me of like our relationship, and even the relationship we have with Micah and some of the other guys in the band. Was just this idea of like, man, there was a moment in time where we were actually living this scene. And I didn't even realize it was some of the best days of our life in my mind, right? In these moments that are enjoyable, but it also kind of opened my eyes to go, dude, like, it's so important to keep relationships in your life, because you might not live out that scene per se, but you can still live out that scene relationally. Because I think, I don't know, for me, that was the point that was like, oh man, there's something to be said about just keeping in touch and creating moments of just those kind of relationships that keep fun in your life, even in your, your mid 40s.
Well, and when we keep if we think that the ultimate attainment is for our benefit, I understand how you can see many things in life and you think, oh, wow, it's not living up to what I thought, because your focus is on yourself. And so there's really that mindset. It's looking at the standpoint of, what are we living for? And we've made it clear what our beliefs are when you're listening to this podcast. We believe that Jesus Christ came and died for our sins, and he gave us grace, which means we can't do anything to earn it. Like it's a gift from God. Now we have these works, if you will, that has nothing to do with our salvation. But these works are assignments that God's put on our life, but it's not for us. But when we live with the mindset that everything is for us, that's why it feels so empty. There was this quote that I want to read by Dallas Willard. He's a great theologian that had passed away several years ago. But he says, grace is not opposed to effort. It's opposed to earning. And it's that mindset of you don't have to earn anything. Like if you can operate on the foundation that Jesus was the end all be all, everything was done at that moment. Now, what are you living for? So we're living to accomplish the assignments, the goals, the dreams that he's placed on our heart. So if you look at your life with those regrets, it's usually stemmed from something of, I want to accomplish this, or I need to do that. It's really because the focus is so on yourself. And really, if you want to narrow it down in these short podcasts, which can really create more conversation, I hope, more than anything, it's arrogance. It's really the word hubris. It's the thought where you are thinking of yourself so highly. I don't mean you're necessarily walking around with if you got that D'd up personality, it's more of an arrogance that everybody sees because, whoa, get out of the way of a fired up, D personality who's arrogant. Sometimes it's also those who are a little more, they're just more chill. They're more sanguine, but yet they can also have an arrogance where it's more about, they hold you in contempt. Like there's nothing you can tell me that I'm going to listen because I already just kind of know how this is. And our focus, if we don't watch out when we get trapped in one of these ways, it's because we're seeing the end game is for us. And it's not actually a deeper end game, which is ultimately to bring glory to God and to lift up those and help those around us achieve the assignments that God's put in their life. And so we can have this self-esteem issue, which we've addressed in previous episodes, but really worse than that is we can have this overinflation of ourself. And really it's the mindset of, here you are, you look bigger than you really are. And that might be the way you perceive yourself, or really even the way that you perceive somebody else being bigger than who they are. And they've really had nothing but a bunch of hot air pumped into them. But you can have all this hot air put into yourself, and you begin to have an overinflated view of who you are, that you were supposed to accomplish something so magnificent at whatever level magnificent is for you, but you had it more focused on yourself. And I think about this book that I've read, probably 5 times. And it's simple. I'd encourage a lot of you to, it's probably an hour read for you, but it's called The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness by Tim Keller. And it talks all about this mindset of being too pumped up when really the goal is humility, which doesn't make you think I'm nothing. It just means I'm not over analyzing and making myself a lot larger than I really am.
So in context to the Top Gun scene, where middle-aged men are looking at these scenes and looking at what's happening, we could have the tendency to think that, man, we've missed the mark so much that we're like, well, we're never going to experience. Here we are at middle age thinking, oh man, my life doesn't look like that. But the reason we feel that way is because maybe we've had an overinflated or mindset towards thinking, well, I've got to accomplish this type of grandeur. I've got to have this amount of money in the bank. I've got to have this size house. I've got to be married this many years. My kids got to go to this school. I've got to have this kind of car on this side of town or this type of job. In somewhere, somehow in life, we've positioned ourselves, whether we've allowed culture to do it, but we've gotten to a place where we've allowed ourselves to think, wow, I've got to accomplish this in order to be successful. And because we haven't attained whatever that, false expectation or whatever, we've put on ourselves, we feel less than, because we've really focused so much more on ourselves. And we've missed the moments of greatness that are right in front of us being able to enjoy where we are and not so much focus on that, but enjoy like, hey, there's greatness in every moment you find yourself in. I think of it through the lens of everything church planting. As a church planter, it's like, well, we launched with 262, but it wasn't 500. Oh man, I'm a failure. I'm miserable. Or it wasn't 1,000, or it wasn't, and I look through those lenses and I'm thinking, no, wait a minute, hold up. No, the success is obedience. The success is being faithful to what's in your hand. The outcome necessarily isn't what's important. It's the faithfulness to what's in your hand that's more important. And so if God allows those opportunities to happen, great. If not, then great. Just be thankful for the moment that you're in with the people that you're with and make the most of that. And it's amazing how God will bless you for it.
That's why you see the people who attain everything you just said. They slay every dragon. They become the CEOs. They accomplish great things because they wanted to achieve these awesome things, but they did it at the expense of forgetting what was right before them. What is it if you gain the world and lose your soul? It's that whole mindset of humility keeps you tethered to not thinking of yourself too highly. Humility also keeps you tethered to not thinking of yourself too lowly. I don't care what you think about me, but I also don't care what I think about myself. It's all about, what does God think about me? That's why we started this out. Our belief system. So when we speak, we have to speak on what's the belief system that we base everything on. And if you don't base it on something stronger than yourself, you're going to live in those depressive moments that aren't going to stop with a beach scene. It's going to happen for the rest of your life because it's meaningless. If you remind yourself, even as Christians, we're got this sometimes an Americanized idea that we just got to go live our best life. And so we begin building to go attain. And you're listening to a guy who's done this for so many years. And I've had to learn that process and the path of humility, which has come through, unfortunately, times of humiliation that got me there. But it was all God's grace reminding me, grace is not opposed to your effort. It's opposed to your earning. It's that mindset that I have to earn. So what is our mindset? It's to live as Christ, to die as gain. Like, we have to remind ourselves, this is our belief system. So when you hear me talk, it's going to be in that way. At the end of the day, I'm not owed anything. I'm a slave to Christ, which means I've taken any right to myself and I've said, Lord, whatever you have for me, that's what my goal is. I'm not perfect by any means. I have a lot of desires that are not God desires. I hope as I continue to journey, he's burning that away. I've spent as a musician and someone who has really been given the honor of pastoring hundreds of worship pastors. I talked to a bunch of people they've written their gifting off because they said, I've hit a certain age, I'm done now. Well, if your definition of being a musician and a vocalist, let's say that's a craft that you have, just like some of you work on houses and some of you cut grass, whatever it is. But if you are a musician and you're thinking that way, it's because you've put whatever that stage that says has to be young. That's the epitome of your expression of music. Well, yeah, then that's going to be a really sad day at the beach when you watch that beach scene, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to get down and you're going to disqualify yourself. But if you look at it, that your whole sole purpose, in this case, an artist, is to express your gifting for the glory of God and for the building up of others, well, my goodness, you've got endless stages for that. And that gives a fresh hope because once again, you tether yourself back to why are you doing this in the first place? So when I see that beach scene, I'm not going to have my identity as wrapped around it where it grabs a hold of me like I'm a failure, but I can see the simplicity and say, to go do that means I'm not getting to be present here for my wife. I'm not getting to be present here for my boys. I'm not getting to help the wonderful staff that I'm a part of at Church of the Highlands. To go do that means I'm not getting to serve Highlands College. You put yourself back on what's my assignment. And when you do that, there's nothing more grand than what you're getting to do. there is always something that is alluring, always trying to win your attention, always trying to win your affection. And the enemy is constantly trying to distract you by showing you what you missed out on. You are in grace. There's nothing earned from this point. You can take today and continue what you've been doing for the glory of God and for the building up of those that God's put in your sphere of influence.
So, Justin, there was a verse that you mentioned earlier that stuck out to me, is what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world, but yet forfeits his own soul? And so that reminded me of Deion Sanders' life. You know, we're talking about somebody who thought like if there's ever been an athlete who overinflated himself, and he'll tell you like the pride level he had, the arrogance and in the mindset of thinking he was the best of the best and nobody's better than him and just overinflated, right? Pride. Like he lived that life. He was living it at the highest level, giving himself his own nicknames and just marketing himself in ways that, hey, he's the best, he's the greatest. But yet even the greatest came to a place where he had to humble himself. And it was at the point of humbling himself where he began to experience fulfillment, and his soul was ultimately fulfilled. And it changed his entire perspective on how he viewed himself and how he viewed the world and how he truly viewed what is epic. Romans 12:3 says, "Do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of us."
Thank you for listening to Armchair Authentic with Rhett and Justin. We had a great time with you today. We look forward to catching up with you next week. But until then, we'd love to hear from you so we can continue to create content in future episodes. You can email us at info@armchairauthentic.com. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.